Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. Man suffers only because he takes seriously what the gods made for fun. The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. This is the real secret of life. To be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it is play. Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at and exploring itself. You are a function of what the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is a function of what the whole ocean is doing. I have realized that the past and future are real illusions, that they exist in the present, which is what there is and all there is. The more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. Try to imagine what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Now try to imagine what it was like to wake up having never gone to sleep. Problems that remain persistently insoluble should always be suspected as questions asked in the wrong way. A scholar tries to learn something every day. A student of Buddhism tries to unlearn something daily. When we attempt to exercise power or control over someone else, we cannot avoid giving that person the very same power or control over us. Never pretend to a love which you do not actually feel, for love is not ours to command. Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while one is peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is just to peel the potatoes. One is a great deal less anxious if one feels perfectly free to be anxious, and the same may be said of guilt. You and I are all as much continuous with the physical universe as a wave is continuous with the ocean. If we cling to belief in God, we cannot likewise have faith, since faith is not clinging but letting go. But I'll tell you what hermits realize. If you go off into a far, far forest and get very quiet, you'll come to understand that you're connected with everything. The world is filled with love play, from animal lust to sublime compassion. So then, the relationship of self to other is the complete realization that loving yourself is impossible without loving everything defined as other than yourself. What we have to discover is that there is no safety, that seeking is painful, and that when we imagine that we have found it, we don't like it. There is nothing at all that can be talked about adequately, and the whole art of poetry is to say what can't be said. If, then, my awareness of the past and future makes me less aware of the present, I must begin to wonder whether I am actually living in the real world. You're under no obligation to be the same person you were 5 minutes ago. I am what happens between the maternity ward and the crematorium. But my dear man, reality is only a Rorschach ink blot, you know. Just as true humor is laughter at oneself, true humanity is knowledge of oneself. We do not come into this world. We come out of it, as leaves from a tree. Technology is destructive only in the hands of people who do not realize that they are one and the same process as the universe. It's better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing, than a long life spent in a miserable way. Hospitals should be arranged in such a way as to make being sick an interesting experience. One learns a great deal sometimes from being sick. You do not play a sonata in order to reach the final chord, and if the meanings of things were simply in ends, composers would write nothing but finales. I find that the sensation of myself as an ego inside a bag of skin is really a hallucination. The source of all light is in the eye. You are that vast thing that you see far, far off with great telescopes. People become concerned with being more humble than other people. I owe my solitude to other people. Normally, we do not so much look at things as overlook them. We know that from time to time, there arise among human beings, people who seem to exude love as naturally as the sun gives out heat. For there is never anything but the present, and if one cannot live there, one cannot live anywhere. In looking out upon the world, we forget that the world is looking at itself. Our pleasures are not material pleasures, but symbols of pleasure, attractively packaged but inferior in content. Just as money is not real, consumable wealth, books are not life. To idolize scriptures is like eating paper currency. I have no other self than the totality of things of which I am aware. The religious idea of God cannot do full duty for the metaphysical infinity. Instant coffee, for example, is a well-deserved punishment for being in a hurry to reach the future. When you find out that there was never anything in the dark side to be afraid of, nothing is left but to love.